The hit video game Night in the Woods is beloved for its charming characters and striking art style. But like all art that truly resonates, it also has something to say. And the politics of Night in the Woods are staunchly progressive. If you haven't played the game, consider this your spoiler warning. Many of the main characters are queer. The town of Possum Springs' problems all stem from being exploited by the rich. A hauntingly familiar version of our own world shows a small town struggling to survive, the young people leaving for better opportunities in the city, and an aging community unsure how to continue in today's economy. I'm your host, RK, and spoilers, the monster is capitalism itself is culturally effed. Night in the Woods centers around May, a feline college freshman dropout who flees back home and tries to reconnect with her friends and family, but is plagued by doubts, fears, cosmic horrors, and murderous cults. The game is thick with references to outlandish socialist ideas like how we should take care of the sick and elderly and that people should be paid a living wage. May might at first seem like a slacker, but she's actually had the deck stacked against her. She never had money to fully treat her emotional problems and hallucinations. Her family had to risk losing their house just to pay for her education. May herself routinely remarks on the injustices of the society that she lives in. She talks about how people shouldn't be forced to work until they die, and that fixing the crumbling infrastructure around her could benefit the town, but that would mean taxing the rich to pay for it. Bay is May's childhood friend, left behind when May left for college. Bay's entire storyline centers around the death of her mother to cancer, a tragedy compounded by the fact that the healthcare system drained her college fund and left her family in more debt. Much of her conflict with May comes from the fact that the feline is dropping out of college while the croc can't afford to go at all, in spite of Bay being the one who's smart enough not to walk around on the power lines. More childhood friends and resident adorable gay couple, Greg and Angus, are working full-time for 2 low minimum wage jobs, barely getting by and hoping to escape the town for somewhere more liberal with higher standards of living. Young and old, almost everyone in May's town would benefit from more social services. According to news updates found on May's computer, her world is even more firmly in the grip of late-stage capitalism than ours, with corporations using the government to extract value from the populace in shocking and inhumane ways. But Night in the Woods isn't content to show us our own late-stage capitalist world through the mirror of Furry. Consider the supernatural metaphors. The biggest example of this is that the monster in the game is an intentional stand-in for capitalism. In the game, the undesirable members of society are sacrificed to a god called the Black Goat in return for the town's prosperity. Whether these sacrifices actually work, or if the monster is even able to make that sort of change in the world, is unclear. But the cabal of murder dads is super convinced that it's the best way to do things, since it's the way things have always been done. And it just so happens to let them kill anyone they deem a troublemaker and that nobody would miss. The cult of murder dads consists of old boys, older established men in the community. They have plenty of money, as evidenced by their arsenal of firearms, as opposed to the main characters and their families, who are struggling to survive financially. Let's take a look at who the cult decides isn't worth keeping around. Homeless people are popular, as are the teenagers and young adults in the community. The murder dads also don't hesitate to inflict violence on each other. When Lerv fails them by leaving a victim's arm out on the street, they punish him by crushing his leg with a rock and likely feeding him to the Black Goat God. The cultists justify their string of murders by claiming it's for the benefit of Possum Springs.
It's all about the greater good.
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good?
The greater good.
Shut it!
But that's a tough case to make, especially if you're one of the people being killed. What's more, the economic boons supposedly granted by the Black Goat are far more likely to be normal variations in ore deposits and commodity markets. What's more likely that an unseen voice trapped in a hole can add veins of ore to the mines, or that the miners just keep mining and they keep finding more? In real-life economics, capitalism has a cult following of its own. Just look at the comment section. Where Night in the Woods has the black goat, we have the invisible hand of the free market. People, even poor people, will swear the free market will somehow make us all rich, which is why we shouldn't tax the rich. I'm sure we'll all be rich any day now. Any day now. Sure, some of us might need to be quite literally sacrificed, but anyone killed by capitalism surely did something to deserve it, because only hard work can alleviate us out of poverty. This is a meritocracy after all. That's just the price capitalism demands. Of course, this flies in the face of mountains of economic data. But is this all just speculation? Are we putting words in the game devs' mouths? Here's what the game developers have to say about it. In the end, May and her friends dynamite the entrance to the cave used by the cult of murder dads, leaving them with no choice but to starve or throw themselves into the pit with the black goat. This is a striking parallel to the violent fate the Mind Bosses met in the game's own in-world history. They refused to stop exploiting the populace until the working class took matters into their own paws. This is depicted in the underground mural May and the town's teenagers frequent, a forgotten relic of a time the town has since forgotten. While this might be a cathartic ending to a video game, we're fortunate enough not to live in quite as grim of a world as Night in the Woods. Or do we? Culturally Effed is an advocate for eating the rich and feeding them to the dark gods. Hashtag economic justice for. But just like in the game, the dark gods of capitalism only have power over us if we allow it. By calling for policies that raise the standard of living and are based on evidence, we can change the world for the better. All we have to do is hold on to it. It's hard to wrap our minds around all the complexity of economic and social issues, so it's vital for media, such as Night in the Woods, to put them in context. We don't need to think of time as a commodity to be spent or wasted. That mindset only benefits the powerful who exploit us. We do not need to feel guilty when we can't work at 100% capacity forever. We are not machines, we are people. And sometimes it takes anthro-animals to remind us of that. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe to get more of our subversive talking animal content. You can also help us throw off the yoke of capitalism by supporting us on Patreon. I have been your host, Dark A. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to the Rusty Horror Picture Show. I am Dr. Frankenfurter. Don't dream it. Be it. Be a subscriber to Culturally Effed and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/culturallyeffed. So come to the lab and see what we have on the slab. Give yourself over to absolute beauty with our t-shirts for sale at culturallyeffed.com. Let's do the time warp again and rewatch that episode because it was so excellent. Subscribe to Culturally Effed and you won't be left with anticipation.